what I will talk about as well is the coaches, and that's what we were mentioning before. So with the coaches, obviously, we'll go through every single coach and we'll rank them based on 5 being the most under pressure coach. Like, they're really under pressure next year, they could almost be sacked. And 1 would be, like, least under pressure. They're not going to be much talked about no matter what really happens. So we'll start off with Matthew Nicks at the Crows. Do you think that it's a big year for him? I mean, I think it would be a pretty big year.
I think it is. I think, we can say, well, they should have made finals last year because of that stupid goal or whatever. They have to make finals in 2024. They have to. I still only think it's only a 3 out of 5 that he's under pressure. But if he doesn't make it, the pressure will be on him the year in 2025. So I think it's only about a 3, but he's I'd
probably say even a 4 for me, 3 or 4, because if he doesn't make finals, the pressure is going to mount really quickly. Especially being in South Australia, such a 2-club. Obviously, it's a 2-club state, and the pressure's already on one coach. They might as well pile them on another. Matthew Nicks, a lot of these time as well, there are a lot of coaches that get their clubs out of the bottom of the ladder, like the Crows have been. We've seen him in like the Gold Coast or whatever. Like Stuart Duke got them out of that area, finally got them to a spot, but couldn't get them to the next stage of finals.
And they need that,
So if Matthew Nicks, this year, I think it's a 3. 3, probably maybe a 4, but I think I'd go with sitting on a 3. He's pretty mildly under pressure at the moment. But if he doesn't make those finals this year, next year is going to be really under pressure, because we've seen coaches, if they can't get to that next stage of finals, the pressure just mounts considerably. So I think it's a pretty big point there. Next we've got Brisbane, Chris Fagan. I mean, I think it's probably a 1 or a 2, to be honest. Oh no, I'm going to say a 3, because Chris Fagan, he finally got him to a grand final, but again they lost. So he's not going to get sacked if he gets into the grand final and loses again. But it's pretty hard to keep him as coach, keep on going when he's not getting him over that final hurdle.
I think it's close to. I think it's about 3.5, 4, because of that reason. And Brisbane have been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and he's getting close, but is he the man to get him to go all the way?
Yeah.
That's why I think he's a bit more under pressure than what maybe some people think.
Yeah. Next one, we're going to Michael Voss. I think it's a pretty quick one, to be honest. But anyway, Michael Voss, if this was mid-year last year, it would have been a 5.
Well, he was a 5.
It was a 5. It was almost gone. But obviously got him to the prelim final. Oh, it's a hard one, because if they kind of finish at the mid-table, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him. But if he makes, even if he finishes where they did, like, the ladder last year, the thing is also with Carlton is they had a really easy draw for a lot of the year. They had twice North Melbourne. I think they had twice North Melbourne. They definitely had twice West Coast, and they had quite an easy run. So that is going to be a talking point as well for Michael Voss, because they did have a period where they had some pretty easy games.
Yeah, and that's why they got on that run.
Yeah, that's why they got on the run, and it does help having an easy run at points in the season. So I'm going to put it at a 2. To be honest, because I think that he finally got Carlton to a position where they make finals and win finals, and he got them to a prelim. So if he can, I think at the moment, sitting at this point, I'd say about a 2. That's probably me. I don't think he's very under pressure at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's a 3. I think also he needs to get Harry Mackay able to kick goals. He needs to get him back into the.
They've never really been able to get Curnow and Mackay both firing.
And I think if they can get them both, they can finish top 2.
Yeah,
really, they can finish top 2 if they can get both firing. But
that's it, because they've got one of the best defensive combinations in the comp with Young and Wiedering, and also the small defenders as well. They've got one of the best midfielders, one of the best midfields in the comp with Chera, Cripps, and Walsh, I think he's going to burst onto the scene next year. And then they've got a really good forward line, minus maybe a small forward, but even Fantasia coming in could really add to those stocks. So
I think it's a 3.
Yeah. I think that's a fair enough call. Collingwood, I think it's 1, to be honest. Craig McRae. I don't think we're talking too much about that. He's the least under pressure coach probably going into next year, if I'm being honest.
Because they've got the list, they've got everything, and they've got the experienced players around.
And they've obviously got the Premier. They're obviously
got the
Premiers, so there's not much talking point for Craig McRae. Brad Scott, interesting one, because Essendon once again, after they looked like they were going to be making finals, they just bottled it.
Yeah. Again.
Again. And now they've gone to the trade period, they've gone to the off-season, they've picked up a lot of players in the trades, they've picked up quite a few players in the draft. Now they go on to a new season. They've obviously had a lot of talking points in the off-season about having their training camps, paying for it by themselves, I believe. Have a training camps over in America. Brad Scott, I think, basically said if you're not acting like professional footballers, then you won't be in my team next year. So he's had a lot of good talking points. He has been a coach of a club that's got to finals, but has never really been a focal point. I would say North Melbourne never really got challenged. I don't be honest. I don't ever think those years when they were like in the top 4. I never really thought they were going to make grand final.
No,
they were never that dangerous.
Yeah.
So I think Brad Scott, as under pressure, I think it's probably a 3 for me. But if the early season's poor for Essendon, which we have seen in the past, that's gonna go up pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think it's a 3. They need to start establishing their forward line because Peter Wright was injured for the start of last season, but this season, they just need to find out their forward line, I think.
And we have seen though that if Peter Wright can come in early in the season, have a good pre-season, come in well, they've got one of the best hybrid forwards in the comp now in Kyle Langford. One of the most underrated players in the comp, I've thought, for quite a while.
Yeah. And
he finally burst onto the scene in 2023 with a 50-goal season.
Yeah.
I think he's a real dark horse for a really big season for Essendon again. And I think that's where they can really shine. If they can get Peter Wright to score some goals, they can have some real pressure forwards. And then even if Kyle Langford plays as a second tall, like we saw with Richmond back in 2017 with Jack Riewoldt being the tall forward and then everyone else is around him, that could be a way that Essendon start to build as a forward line next year.
Yeah,
I think that's a big talking point. But to the next coach, this is a high 5 for me.
Yeah,
Justin Longmuir. I think he's top 3 most under pressure coaches going into next year.
Yeah, 100%. And with their off season from their trade period and all that, it's a high 5.
It's a high 5. I don't see how Fremantle can even bounce back, to be honest. They've lost players that were important, Lockie Schultz and Liam Henry. Yeah. They've brought Jeremy Sharp in, which is I don't know how good he'll be, but I don't think he's I don't think he's going to change their season around by any means.
I think the interesting thing is because he's coming home back to Perth.
Yeah. But I mean, is he gonna rise you up the ladder a couple of positions? I don't think so.
Yeah, exactly. So the other good thing is that they signed Sean Darcy, but is it gonna?
That's two ruckmen. We've already seen that Melbourne had that problem and got rid of Brodie Grundy really quick.
And it just I don't know if it really works. Sean Darcy isn't a forward.
And I don't think Luke Jackson can play that midfield hybrid that they're trying to expect him to be. I don't know how that's going to work.
And I think another big thing is Nat Fyfe.
Yeah.
Can they get him on the field? And if they can
he perform? That's the question.
Where is he going to play? I don't know. He
would have to play forward.
He would, but he needs to be able to kick straight.
Yeah. And he's not quick enough now to be a pressure forward, so he's going to have to be a third tall.
Yeah. And
Tabner as well is a big talking point because he's always injury prone. He needs to be firing on all cylinders for Fremantle to even... If Fremantle are to make top 8 next year, Brayshaw and Sarong are probably going to have almost Brownlow years.
Yeah.
Their defence is their lucky spot. They are in a very good position in defence.
Yeah.
They've got very good... Their lineup going into 2024 probably is... That's their most set part of the
field. Maybe they're in that defence is maybe in the top 5 in the league.
Yeah. But their midfield... their midfield's okay, their first 3 or 4.
But they don't have any depth.
It drops off very quickly. Yeah. And their forward line, they've lost the best small forward in their team. Were one of their best pressure forwards as well. Probably the best, most potent small forward, in my opinion. But he's also probably one of their best pressure forwards as well. Tabner is always injury prone. Jai Amos was carrying that tall forward line last year.
At the age of what? Less than 20?
Yeah, less than 20. So I think that Justin Longmuir is under a lot of pressure. And being in Western Australia as well, when there's both the teams are under pressure, especially when it is Fremantle, the pressure piles on really quick. So I think he's probably top 3 most under pressure coaches next year. Another one which I think is under pressure is Chris Scott. Now, Geelong, obviously, a lot of injuries in 2023, won the grand final in 2022. A lot of people aren't expecting them to bounce back. But as a culture that's been successful for so many years, they kind of need to bounce back here. I'm honestly going to put Chris Scott at a 4.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the same. I think that they don't have that much youth in their team, and they need to be able to find that next list, the next list that's going to get them to the finals, get them to a premiership, and they've got so many players over the age of 30 that are they going to be there at that next premiership?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we talked last week about Tom Stewart moving potentially into the midfield next year. I think that's a really dumb idea. I don't know how long that's going to last.
I don't think we said this last week about it, but because he is over 30, how many years are you expecting him to play for?
Yeah.
And let's be honest, he's more chance of getting a big serious injury, I believe, in the midfield than he is in defence.
Yeah, it's probably a fair call. I mean, especially with like soft tissue injuries as well. But I think Chris Scott's he's not as under pressure as maybe like Ken Hinkley and Justin Longmuir and that, but he's definitely up there. And if they don't make finals again, 2 years in a row, Geelong don't make finals, he would be really under pressure.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's going to be in the firing line late in the season if they don't make finals, but I definitely think he'll be a big talking point later in the year if they're not going to make the finals in 2024. After that, we get to Damien Hardwick at the Gold Coast. This is obviously a 1. They're not going to. He's nowhere going to get fired after a year.
No,
unless they finish by bottom 2, which I mean, I doubt it. And even then, I don't think they would fire him.
No, he's probably the most.
He's probably one of the least under pressure coaches.
I think you say 1. I think it's a 2. But it doesn't mean much. But
yeah, I think it's fair enough. Adam Kingsley, probably a 1. Again, he had a really good year in his first year. It'd be interesting to see how he backs it up, but I don't think he's very under pressure at all. I think he's definitely building something, Adam Kingsley, because arguably, if it wasn't for Craig McRae, I think he probably was one of the best coaches of the year. So I think he was definitely up there. He's definitely building something. As long as he has his stress ball, he should be fine. But I think Adam Kingsley's pretty fine at the GWS, and they're definitely going to build something there. And the fact that in the off season he was able to keep players at the club, that's a big one.
It was a strong statement, I thought. As a club that they kept those players on the list.
I mean they had players not wanting to leave, but they had players like out of contract, like Himmelberg and those sort of players, and all of them signed, which was amazing for one to keep it under the cap, but also to keep those players and potentially build something in the next couple of years. Hawthorn, Sam Mitchell. I really don't think that there's a lot of pressure for him yet. If they can build onto a season that we are expecting, I think he's definitely a 2. But if they do finish around where they finished this year, I think there will be a bit of talking points. But I think around 2 at the moment.
I think it's a 2, I think they've got the list. I think the board and all that know what he's building, and they'll give him the time to do it.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Simon Goodwin, this is tough. I think this is probably around a 4 or a 5. A lot of people are thinking that Melbourne may drop off this year, and they've had so many off-season antics this season, and last season as well. I think this is around a 4. Melbourne have built a pretty good list in the past few years, but 2 straight years going out in straight sets in finals puts you under pressure, puts you in the firing line. Now, I think they'll have a pretty good year in the home and away season, as they tend to do. They're pretty good at home at the MCG. They're not the worst away, so I think they'll be fine going into the regular season. But if they go out straight sets, or if they go out straight away in the finals again, Simon Goodwin's job will be in question.
Part of I don't know. Like, it's probably a 4 or 5, but I mean, like, they need to find a way to kick goals. They can't rely on Bailey Fritsch to do it.
And they can't rely on their defence. Yes, it's a very good defence, probably the best in the league. But they can't rely on that defence. Well, maybe second. But they can't rely on Stephen May and Jake Lever to keep every single team in the comp under 60, 70 points every single game for them to win. You just can't do that.
No.
Because teams eventually will find a way to get goals. And if you have an off day against a big team, or even just a little team, and get beaten when they get 100 points, I don't see Melbourne getting 100 points as a team. So even in the off-season, they didn't pick up much to help their forward line. They picked up Shane McAdam.
It's not really a tool.
He's not. I don't see him kicking 30 goals. And Jack Billings as well as a midfielder / half forward. I don't see much coming out of him in goals. So they're going to have to lift somewhere. I think Cosy Pickett's a big one. And their midfield depth going down means Christian Petrarca will likely have to play midfield. He won't be able to play forward and kick goals. I mean, he'll kick goals in the midfield, but yeah, that's another one. And obviously, Joel Smith will be out for the first few games of the season. So yeah, they're going to have to, find that structure for a forward line, but then also then use that to kick their goals.
Yeah.
So yeah, what are you saying, 4 or 5?
Yeah, 4 or 5, yeah.
Fair enough. Alistair Clarkson, this is probably one of the toughest ones because...
Yeah, he wasn't there with all the...
He wasn't there last year for a lot of his, the mental struggles that he had. He comes now with a lot of players leaving. I think they had over 1,000 games of experience just leave. So they got, I think, the youngest playing group going into next year.
But they've had so many draft picks.
And they've finished bottom so many years in a row with all these draft picks. I think it's around a 3, how under pressure they are.
I think it's only a 2.
Okay.
I think that... Yeah, with all the mental struggles he's had the last year, I think they'll give him some time.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they want to move on such a high privilege, profile coach. So, and so much press and stuff when he first arrived there, I think they'll give him some time.
I do get that point, but this team has been locked to the bottom for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
They have not moved.
And the thing is that just imagine if Larky gets injured for round 1, they're screwed.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. They need to find another forward,
Yeah.
a big forward that can kick goals. But
yeah, and it looks like the Charlie Comben is going to be going back this year in defence. So I mean, he's been I think he's been playing there quite a bit before he got his injury.
Yeah.
So at the end of his career, end of the year. So I think that's something that they can work with. But like you said, other than Nick Larky kicking goals, if he gets injured, they've only got Cam Zerha really to kick goals. So that's why, I get why you're saying a 2 because they want to give him some more time. But this team has had so much time to do something, and they've just been locked to the bottom. As a fan, if you're a fan of North Melbourne, how can you be excited going into the next season knowing that basically you're going to be locked to the bottom again?
Yeah.
And there's no, is there any sort of light at the end of the tunnel here? There's nothing there because they've got nothing to look forward to. They've got these draft picks that, will be good in a couple of years.
They've got the Good Friday game. They've always got that one.
Oh, good on them.
Yeah,
It's amazing they're going to go and get smashed
Yeah.
on Good Friday. Are they playing Carlton this year? I think they are.
I think
Again.
so.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway,
I don't care. I don't really look at the North Melbourne fixture.
Anyway, next we've got another high-profile under-pressure coach, which is Ken Hinkley. Now, I'll say a 5 right off the bat, but obviously with you being the Port supporter here, what do you think?
You want me to take a shot?
You take the reins.
All right. Well, Ken Hinkley somehow got a new contract at the end of August, which I thought was the most stupidest thing, and like what most people thought. The season finishes in September.
Yeah.
In finals, so why would you give him the contract?
Well, to be fair, David Koch said he was going to wait till August to give it.
Yeah, I know that, but why would you wait till August? You should have waited till September to see where we actually finished. Because once he got the contract, we lost more games than we won.
Yeah.
At that time, so was it a smart choice? Probably not, in my opinion. And we've seen with other coaches that have been sacked, and then the new coach comes in, and Craig McRae, Adam Kingsley, Michael Voss, they all made finals and they made a good run at it and they got to a prelim finals, win the premiership.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
I mean, Craig McRae went prelim this first year.
Yeah, so. Prelim, exactly. So, he's a 5 and I think he's the most under pressure coach, even more than Justin Longmuir.
Yeah, I'd probably say that too.
With all the inclusions, Zirk Thatcher, Radicalia, all them, he's got the list. And the new captain in Rosie and vice captain in Butters.
Yeah, exactly, yep. And Willem Drew just re-signed as well.
Yeah, it's a big year for Port Adelaide and they have to make the top 4. But I don't know if that list does get them top 4.
If they made the prelim this year, 2024, does he keep his job?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. We'll leave it there.
And,
Oh, no, sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that there's just... Yeah, I don't know what Port Adelaide's list is gonna. Their defense is so under pressure. They don't have. I don't think their defense is gonna make them premiers.
Yeah, I could probably say that.
'Cause
They do have like a lot of tall defenders, but at the end of the day, it's not just that wins you a premiership. You think of Collingwood this year. Isaac Quaynor was one of their best defenders, and they also had Jeremy Howe back there helping in the intercept defence and all that sort of stuff. The Port Adelaide, I think Radicalier and that will help being an extra tall, so Alia can play as that intercept.
Yeah.
But even just playing as like a small defenders, there's not that many good ones at Port Adelaide that you can think of, and there's a lot of all those top teams have some really good small forwards.
Yeah.
So that's maybe another talking point as well. But yeah, I think like you said, he's he's probably under the most pressure going into next year. Adam Uze just got to Richmond. I mean, it's probably a 1. Yeah, you can't really be under pressure under your first year, but we obviously saw David Noble a couple of years get sacked on his first year. So
I think
Richmond are looking like they're going to go down.
And he needs to somehow get Tom Lynch back on the field, and there's some other things like Jacob Kaczynski's, I think, an interesting player going into this year because he's putting in the shoes of Jack Greenwell. So,
and has he ever been that sort of type? I mean, Jack Rewald, especially when they were in their premiership years, he was crashing packs. He was always bringing it to the ground. That's what Jacob Kaczynski's going to have to do.
Yeah. Because
Tom Lynch now, especially, is probably going to have to play as that, full forward. So Jacob Kaczynski's going to have to play between the wings. He's going to have to play from 40 out to like at least mid wing, centre wing. Play that sort of role to take marks as well. And at Hawthorn last year especially, he wasn't even in their best team.
No.
So can he stand up? Can Richmond finally bring some of these young midfielders that we've heard about for a bit now, actually bring them into this midfield group and, perform, with obviously Cochin leaving?
Yeah.
And they got to stop relying on Dustin Martin.
No, yeah, 100%. And, 100%. They've got to stop relying on a 30-plus-year-old.
Yeah. We understand that Dustin Martin was one of the best players that we've seen in this last 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So 8 years probably. But now they've got to rely. They've got to be the turnover here. Yeah. Dustin Martin. He could play midfield, but he's got to get. It's probably time when they put some youth through this midfield. Give Shea Bolton give him the first 10 games. You play solid midfield and see how he goes. Put the likes of Tom Dow in there, Jack Ross. Jack Graham, obviously. Chuck these young guys in there as well. Give them a red-hot crack and see what they can produce.
Yeah.
If they can't produce, then... Well, obviously, you got the Taranto and Hopper in there as well. But, these young guys, put them through this midfield and give them a go.
Yeah, yeah.
And they've also got to find some defensive midfielders as well, because these midfield... Like, Taranto and Hopper are a lot more attacking midfielders, if I would say that. So, they've got to find some, like, the two-way runners as well, which I think Marlon Pickett could do, if he's not... doing whatever the fuck he's doing in the off-season, off the field. But I think Adam Uze is probably a 1 just because he just signed. But if it gets to the end of the year and they're right down the bottom of the ladder and there's not a lot of progress...
Like what everyone is thinking.
Yeah, like what a lot of people are thinking. It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
Next we get to Ross Lyon. I don't know. Interesting one.
I think it's a 3.
Yeah, I'd probably say around a 3. But again, this is St Kilda's issue that they've had for... What people probably thought was going to be the biggest issue with Ross Lyon coming back, they just don't find a way to score.
No.
Probably have Melbourne's issue, but the fact is, at least St Kilda have a key forward and a couple of small forwards to get to who are potent enough to kick goals. Dan Butler, Jack Higgins, obviously Max King. Jack Hayes obviously came in late in the season, performed as well as like a ruck forward. Tim Membry, if he can come back from his mental struggles, hopefully he does, because that was really sad at the end of the year.
Yeah.
But those are the type of players that need to start scoring, but their midfield and that as well have to get it in there. Yeah. You obviously saw, probably it was like the COVID year in 2020 of the Swans. Obviously, they had that, I think it was the game against Richmond, when we played against Richmond, and we had a terrible game because it was such a sluggish game, even though it was in a bit of the wet, but because Sydney were playing that defensive football that we've known for like 10 plus years, 15 plus years really, since Paul Rose. But then that was kind of the turning point for the Swans when they, like their midfield and that were like, we have to change this or else we're just going to be at the bottom ladder every year. And that's kind of towards the end of 2020 into 2021, the Swans changed their game style to be a high pressure midfield and that. And we saw that they, made finals in 2021, made the grand final in 2022, and made the finals again in 2023 with that sort of, attributes. And Ross Lyon, I'm not saying he has to change. Well, I mean, he has to change a little bit, but he has to bring the people around him as like coaches to get them to be a more attacking team.
Yeah.
Because you can be the best defense in the comp. Like they have one of the best defenses in the comp, but like you think of Collingwood for example in the grand final and stuff. People were questioning their forwards as well, but the likes of Bobby Hill down there helping out, winning the Norm Smith, and there was a lot of midfield goals coming from them as well. They need to find more midfield goals, and they need to find a way to get forward where they look a lot more potent.
Yeah.
So
And their forward line, they were decimated with injuries at the start of the season last year.
to be fair though, that's when they performed.
Yeah, and it was probably the way that they performed it because they were like, we've got no one else, we've got to rely on you guys, and they played brilliantly, and they were up on the top of the ladder at one point.
Yeah, when it was gather round, it was 1v. They were the top team, I believe. They were the only team undefeated.
Yeah.
Before Collingwood, and then Collingwood beat them. But yeah, I think at the moment I'm sitting at a 3 because it's not. They did make the finals in 2023, which is
no one expected it.
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, are they gonna? If like at the end of the year, if they get to the end of the year not making finals, and they just look like the defensive group that we've all expected from a Ross Lyon team, the pressure will mount, and St Kilda, probably one of the least successful teams in AFL history, they need to start making finals and putting some pressure up because since 2011, this team has not done much. 2012 to 2024 now, they have done very little. So what have they made the best? A semi-final, I think, in 2020 in the COVID year. I think that's the best they've done.
I think that's the best they've done. Yeah.
So this team needs to perform big. So Ross Lyon coming back, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but they need to do something this year.
Yeah.
Next we got John Longmire. Fucking idiot. I am a sponsor supporter, by the way. That's embarrassing for me. What would you say first, like a number? And then I'll go on to what I think.
I think it's close to a 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you say? Why?
I think because they've got the list. I think that list, with what they brought in Sydney, that they're going for it this season.
Yeah.
And yes, Buddy's a huge loss. We won't sugarcoat that, but it's going to be interesting what their forward line looks like if after about 3 weeks they realise that they can't play all 3 tools and all that. With Brody Grundy coming in, it's going to be interesting. They've got the list.
What do you think the pass mark for Sydney is?
Top 4 prelim.
Yeah, I'll probably say the same. I'm going to say 3 or 4. I think 3.5 probably, because Sydney don't sack coaches.
No.
Especially for the last 20 years. So I'm not going to say
they've only had like 2 coaches in that
we've
span.
had Paul Roos and John Longmire, obviously. So I'm going to say a 3.5. But I 100% agree with everything you just said. Sydney have built now. Taylor Adams coming in, Brody Grundy for the experience. James Jordan's in as well to try and bring some youth to their midfield, but also a different attribute. Like he's a runner, which is maybe but also Taylor Adams in that is being that grunt into the midfield.
Yeah.
So I totally understand that. Sydney's forward line, I agree. End of last year, it kind of dropped off on that 3-pronged forward line. I think that Hayden McLean had a massive end of the year.
Yeah.
Joel Amartey and Logan McDonald are a bit of question marks. I do believe their potential is big, and Logan McDonald I think could be one of the best key forwards in the comp if he can build. But at the end of the year, that 3-pronged forward line just didn't exactly work.
Yeah. And
we'll have to see how that goes in round 1. Maybe with a whole pre-season together, those 3, they could work. I don't think it's a bad thing. We saw, obviously, the likes of the Crows back in 2017. They played 3 tall forwards, and they were potent. We've seen 3-pronged forward lines in the past work, even Brisbane to an extent. But can Sydney get these 3 to go well, but also have that pressure that they had in 2022, which they did have in 2023 as well. But I think that's a very big talking point. Errol Goulden will grow again. Their midfielders, another year into them, the likes of Rowbottom, Warner, even the likes of even Sheldrick, who had a bit of an injury at the end of the year, but also had a good, period. McInerney's going to have to improve as well with the loss of Stevens. Just those players getting an extra year into them, I think that's going to be big. I would probably go 3.5 just because Sydney just don't do it. If they don't make finals, which I don't see happening, knock on wood. But if they don't make finals, that's when Justin Longmire will be under pressure. John Longmire will be under pressure. Fuck me. Anyway, yeah, I think that's probably fair enough. Sydney, like you said, top 4 prelim. Fair, that has to be their pass mark this year.
Yeah.
Well, prelim at least. I mean, if they make 5th and get prelim, that's fine. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Adam Simpson is next. This is... I can't believe he kept his job.
No, I can't either.
You can't tell me that he deserved it. I'm sorry. I know there are a lot of West Coast supporters who are in support of him, but how can you lose games on the regular by over 100 points and keep your job?
And concede 200 points at one point.
Yeah, exactly. They have some young guys coming in. I think they had a pretty good off-season. Harley Reid's going to be big for them. Obviously bringing in Flynn and the other guy that I'm forgetting now. Brockman, that's it. Yeah, Kent Brockman. Was pretty big. I think that was pretty good. The likes of Jinby having another extra year into him will be big. If they can keep their players on the field, I think they can have an okay year. I don't think they'll finish outside the bottom 4. I'm not thinking that by any means. But he has to be a 5.
Yeah,
surely.
He's a 5.
I mean, what happens if they go to their first 3 rounds of the season and they lose by 100 points in any of their first 3 games? Or even if they in the first half of the season, if they lose games on the regular by an average of like 50, 60 points, which they were doing, and nothing's changed, this is just a wasted year for West Coast.
Yeah. He could be the first coach sacked.
Well, I think he would be. I think he will be.
Yeah, it's pretty much, it'll be week by week. Is this the week he's going to get sacked? Is this the week he's going to get sacked?
Well, we were told at the start of the year in 2023 that West Coast have a new game plan that's like going to change how West Coast play.
Their excuse was, well, we've got so many injuries, we can't really employ it.
There was no change to their game plan whatsoever. Now, I understand they have a lot of injuries, but they've had that for years. That's on them now.
They've had it since before COVID, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
you can't blame that excuse every single year. Oh, we've got a lot of injuries. Look, every club has injuries, but there's teams out there that, like, you can even bring up Port Adelaide. They had their 13-game winning streak with the injuries that they were having. So you can't just bring that up. And they've got a list that was... there was a lot of experience on that list that could keep them going, that they were like what they were doing. And towards the end of the year, they got a couple of close games and a couple of wins. But to the end of the day, let's be honest, a lot of clubs that they were beating, like they nearly beat Essendon, they did beat the Bulldogs. Not exactly the top echelon of AFL teams. Yeah. So I think Adam Simpson... I think that Ken Hinkley and Justin Longmire are probably more under pressure on the state that they are actually performing. And, but... At the end of the day, I think Adam Simpson's probably most likely, if any of these coaches are to be sacked, they would be.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, he would be.
Yeah.
So I think it's a high 5. Yeah. Last one is Luke Beveridge. I think it's a 5 again, to be honest. I think that he is so under pressure. Again, they have another year of mediocrity. They didn't make finals. The year before that, they just made finals, and they got demolished in the second half against Fremantle in that first final.
Yeah.
2021, they made the grand final, but again, second half, they got demolished.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they were a bit lucky to get all the way through, I'll be honest. But they did get it through, so they have to give him credit for that. And he has been able to get them to grand finals, which, no coach of the Bulldogs has been able to do before Luke Beveridge for a very long time. Yeah. So they obviously have that. But at the end of the day, he's been ruling the roost by himself, really, for a lot of years, which has worked. But now he's going to have to, palm off some jobs to other people to get this team back. And I know people mention the list and they say, oh, maybe it's not that good as we keep on saying. But I think they have a pretty good list. With some of the best midfielders in the comp in their team. Treloar, Liberatore, one of the best, probably the best clearance player in the comp. Bontempelli, one of the best midfielders in the comp. McRae, who has been All-Australian before. These guys, they're a bit older, but I still think that they are some of the best midfielders in the game. Yeah,
they're old, but they're not. I don't think
they're not ancient.
Yeah, they're not fucking Geelong's midfield.
Yeah, exactly. They're not they're not using walking sticks and stuff. Their forward line, I think, could use a couple of better small forwards or whatever.
They need more small forwards. They can't rely on Cody Waitman.
Yeah,
he's a good small forward, but they don't really have anyone else.
Yeah, and I mean, if their 3-prong forward line doesn't work when they don't have enough small forwards to help them out on the ground. If it's only Cody Waitman throwing himself around trying to get a free kick, and the other 2 or 3 that are around there are not doing anything, their midfielders need to score more, I think, as well.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think Luke Beveridge is under so much pressure. If they don't make finals again, which a lot of people are predicting, can he keep his job? I mean, it's
I
another.
think he was close to losing it last season.
Yeah,
but I think like you said that
especially after that West Coast game as well.
Yeah,
that was a very
that was a long week for the Bulldogs fans and in the board and all that.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think like you said, they only made the grand final 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So
well, yeah, exactly.
I think that was also a thing like. He only got it 3 years ago. He can still probably do it.
Yeah.
But he needs to figure out what his team's going to be.
Yeah. And not change the team every single week.
Yeah, because we've always known it, that he doesn't keep the same team in.
And he always keeps in odd players like O'Donnell or whatever. And it's
like
look, no disrespect to the guy, but was he doing that much for them up forward and then went back and he wasn't doing that much there either?
Yeah. And like people like, what was it? Artie Jones and shit, stuff like that, and
Buku,
Jones was getting like what 2 touches and doing nothing, and maybe getting a occasional tackle.
Yeah, and it's like players in the VFL like Buku Kamas and stuff. He kicked 40 plus goals. I think he was 3rd in the goal kicking for the VFL. Wasn't getting a game.
Yeah.
Like, what does that make sense?
Yeah.
But and he decided to stay, which was odd. But anyway, let us know down below if you think that the different rankings for each of the coaches next year, if you think any coaches are more under pressure or less under pressure than we think. But